agreement, consensus over tariffs for gas, the longer the delays for this new production. So it's now getting to the stage where, although they're talking about, whacking production up to 2.5 million barrels a day of oil and whacking up gas production, both the signs are that both gas and oil production will go in the opposite direction. That is, they will decline unless there is a wave of new investment. And right now, that investment isn't coming.
In that case, does that create pressures over this OML 245 case, which is about the big oil block which former oil minister Dan Etete acquired in opaque circumstances and then sold on to Shell and Eni in what an Italian prosecutor believes is an even more opaque circumstance. I guess there are those within the administration who want to sort this out and those who have an eye on declining production and think that they should just get on with it. Is that right?
Yeah, I think there is a division of opinion within the government. The Attorney General, Shehu Malami, and the Deputy Oil Minister, Emmanuel Kachikwu, take the view that Nigeria's just got to do anything it can to whack up production. And rather than wait for the outcome of this long, complex trial in Milan and a judgment about the company's performance and what their actions and all the rest of it, they should just say, look, you've got the license, it's subject to a court hearing, but you just get on and start preparing for production. Let's get on with it. We can't afford to wait a year or two for the outcome of this trial. But our information is that the government, in the executive in the government, that is the president himself and some of his advisors, take an opposite view that they don't want any work on this OPL 245, which is a very, very substantial block. It's meant to be one of the biggest oil production blocks in Africa. They don't want any work to start on it until the legal issues have been resolved. They want to keep their options open. And those options could actually include the two oil companies that got hold of the block, Shell and Italy's Eni, being stripped of the block, depending on the outcome of the Italian case, and being invited to retender for it. That would be extreme, but it's not beyond the bounds of possibility. So what that means is now I think that we're not going to see any early production on that block. That is not great news for Shell and Eni. It means they've paid out over $1 billion for a block, and nothing's going to happen to it, and they still stand a risk of losing it altogether. So I think that's frozen in aspic at the moment. Then one's looking around to see where the new plays in Nigeria are, and you're left with Total and Engina and so on. But there isn't any other really mega oil production project on the horizon. I think last thing one would say on that is that if you look at the time horizon for oil production in the world, plus the rise in shale production in the US, so the US markets are really disappearing for African producers, you're thinking maybe 10, 20 years, perhaps max. There's not a lot of time left for Nigeria to market those big oil reserves, and not a lot of time specifically to make the structural changes away from a dependence on oil as the main source of foreign exchange revenue. So I think the boffins in the Treasury Department, the Economic Planning Department in Abuja, must be working overtime to come up with some strategies to deal with those issues, because they're pretty tough ones.
Hi, Irma. We just talked a little bit about the sort of economic side of things, about how the central bank governor stayed the same, how we're likely to see similar policies around the exchange rate, not much change then, I imagine, in the economic team. On the more political positions in the cabinet, maybe the ones which are used to reward party loyalists, do you expect to see much change?
I mean, when you say change in the context of the Buhari administration, that word has acquired a new meaning, which is quite different from the dictionary meaning, and of course, meaning used in the Obama administration. So in this case, the change is that things. What's that saying about the more things change, the more they remain the same? That's precisely what's going to happen. Um, so what has happened is, first of all, I think that the current minister of Works, Infrastructure, and that's Works, Power, and Housing, who is the former Lagos State governor, I think he will be replaced by another Lagos State governor. And here's why I say so. The APC at the national level wasn't very happy with the way Lagos State Governor Ambode was chased out of the party ticket. And Ambode has seen, that the only way he can stay politically relevant is to go up to the uh, federal scene in what would be like a deja vu of what happened with Fashola. You get out of the good graces of Bola Tinubu, and then you move up to the federal scene. So there's been a flurry of commissioning of projects over the last 4 or 5 months, even projects that are not necessarily completed. So take the airport road, for example, to what is the most busy airport in Nigeria, right? The airport road in Lagos. Buhari commissioned it about a month ago. I went through that airport last Monday, and it's still not, the road is still not complete. But this is just the, positioning for a role in the cabinet, and I think Akin Wumi is going to be the next minister for infrastructure. And then you have other people, which is interesting because
Sorry to jump back in. Where then would Fashola go?
I don't know, but he's been giving valedictory speeches and trying to make it seem like, oh, the reason why he didn't succeed is because, there's corruption, there are vested interest, So I think Fashola is most likely going to be, if he's retained in the cabinet, he might be moved to another role. But I don't see him returning in the same role he has been. If he does, I'll be surprised. I'll be surprised. That is most likely not going to be one of the things that President Buhari talks about tonight in his address, in his interview rather. But if he broaches the subject, I think he likes Fashola, and I think he's going to have Fashola around him. But in what capacity, I don't know. In what capacity, I don't know. But Ambode seems like, because of all of the governors who didn't win a second term, or all of the governors who are out of whose governors' tenure has ended, he seems like the most serious person. So I know for sure that he's going to get into the cabinet, but no one knows what role he's going to get. Okay. And then you have other governors who, the jury is still out on their performance, but some of them are going to be drafted into the federal cabinet. So essentially, it's going to be just like in 2015 when Buhari rewarded loyal party members from, his time in the Congress for Progressive Change, from who had been allies since 2011 or even further back. This situation is going to be a reward for disgruntled members of the party, to keep internal party unity, strong. So that's what I.
So you're saying essentially that rather than prioritize the emergence of a meritocratic array of talent in the cabinet, he'll use the picking of public officers to fix his own political problems.
Again, meritocracy is dependent on who is to Buhari, right? These people merit, what the positions they're going to get based on their loyalty. Yeah, loyalty is a very important quality to the president, right? To the rest of us, or to many of us, right? That is, these are just going to be people handpicked for conditions other than meritocracy and being qualified. You can look at some of the appointments into the board agencies in recent years. You have dead people being appointed to the agencies. You have a 25 or 27-year-old being appointed to the board of the ICPC. Imagine nepotism playing a part in appointment to a corruption board, a corruption agency, an agency to fight corruption. Imagine the sort of thing. So no one is expecting any dramatic appointment. Maybe one or two that will really, really, really make people hope again. But so far, from the feelers we're getting, from the names that are being proposed, you have Bola Tinubu going to is it Mecca, to Saudi Arabia, to pray alongside the president, and the rumors are that he's going to try and lobby for his nephew Wale Tinubu, who is the founder. Sorry, not the founder, the CEO of Oando PLC. Who's trying to lobby for him to be Minister of Petroleum. So you have, all of these rumors and reports, just circulating. And if you know a thing or two about Nigeria, you know that there's no smoke without fire, right? So at the core, the people who will eventually form cabinet are mostly going to be loyalists, party stalwarts, and people that Buhari has an eye for. It's just going to be probably 10 or 20% that who will actually merit their appointment. I mean, look at the current sports minister, for example, a guy who was dismissed by the university he was lecturing at, and someone who's right now at the center of probably the biggest sporting scandal Nigeria has had in a decade, right? He was picked by Buhari because he's a loyal party. He was loyal to Buhari and to Buhari's ideology, right? So that we're going to see more of that over the next 4 years, and I don't think anyone is expecting a major shakeup.
What about the sort of internal security portfolios? The Minister of Defence and any other ministers around sort of internal security. Are we going to see the security challenges of the country handled in any different way?
Well, the president has repeatedly said that he has trust in his security chiefs. He has also, at another point in time, said the reason why he didn't change them was because he didn't want to create disunity within the army hierarchy. So I think, though, that at least one of these security chiefs is going to be retained, and it's also possible that we might see all of them being retained, right? That the security architecture, security apparatus of the security, the constitution of those in charge of security is something that it's hard for anyone to predict, right? We don't expect to see whole-scale changes, right? So it might be a mix. He might drop one or two of them, might still leave the others. The Army Chief Buratai, I don't know. I honestly don't see him leaving. Honestly, do not see him leaving. As for the Defense Minister, I mean, it could spring up surprises. It's possible that he might decide to change, but I don't think it will be any appointment that will give people cause for hope that all of the security challenges, from the Boko Haram insurgency to the kidnapping in the Northwest and elsewhere, that all of these are going to be assuaged. I don't see any such appointment giving us hope. It's just going to be him pulling names out of a hat, according to criteria that he alone understands, and those are those in his immediate inner caucus.
There's a report which came out a few days ago by a US agency which estimated that the violence around herder, pastoralist and settled farmers had cost the country around $13 billion a year over the past 5 years. Did that land at all in Abuja? Have people been talking about it? Has it played out in any of these discussions about who should or who shouldn't be a minister?
A lot of the news that gets to the president is curated by his chief of staff and by a couple of other people, by people who call the three musketeers in the presidency. So I honestly don't think he knows the impact of this sense. But then again, you have to realize that he's a bit, even if, and this is me being euphemistic, he's a bit biased towards, one of the stakeholders in the pastoralist crisis. So no one knows for sure how he will handle it, even if he has an idea of the complete picture. Moving past that, there's been talk of a radio for nomads, something like what was implemented in Kenya a few years ago, and we don't know if that is a direct reaction to that